I'd say Scotland-wide there's a huge swing.
Huge swing.
In my view, certainly in this area, there's been a far bigger realisation, is what I would call it, as to what's going on with renewables, and I believe that's happening across the whole of Scotland, and it's going to have big implications politically and financially and whatever. Due to mismanagement of renewables, and that the industry is basically shooting themselves in the foot, in my opinion. Probably the government's fault for allowing it to go ahead in such a loose, like a loose cannon essentially, and they've just let it go with no control. This is it's gone out of control. It's what's happened. Anything without any structure means that you've got power being generated where you don't need it, when you don't need it, and that needs to be structured. So why would you allow it to go ahead in this way? So they're building wind turbine sites and they have no means of either connecting or getting the power to where it should be. And the latest thing that has come up is grid connections. So Glenvernock at the moment doesn't have a specified grid connection, so they don't know where they're going to connect to. There's been a test case which has gone against Energy Conta, which is the same developer as Glenvernock, relating to grid connection. So in the past they would look at a grid connection as a separate part of the application for a wind turbine site, but according to European law, which is what governs our law essentially, the ruling has said that they should be treated as one development rather than two. So you can't say that you're developing a wind farm and then saying that you're going to look at a grid connection separately. So the current ruling is that these have to be looked at together, which means an environmental impact assessment has to be done for both at the same time. It's a bit like saying you want to build a house, but then suddenly saying, well, we're going to build a garage and certain things, and not tell your neighbours that you're doing it. In case of a lot of them now, it is a mixture of battery storage is another big issue that's up and coming, and it's part of a lot of both wind turbine sites and solar sites. So they might need substations or battery storage pylons locally to get the power from the turbines to those things. But not just that, they need huge, big, what would you call it, construction yards, or both on site and maybe even somewhere else. So, so they've got options for connections of going to Newton Stewart, or going to Glenlee, or going to probably near Colmanel. To me, it's all too industrial and on the intensive scale, whereas renewables should be on more on a micro scale.
Okay,
so
good point. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Maybe a village could be run by a smaller wind turbine, solar panels, or hydro is even better, obviously. These micro style things, where units where power is produced and used at those locations, is far better. That people just don't realise the extent of, as you say, the concrete, the amount of fuel that's used transporting components, and the cost of all that, and is it adequately accounted for, and then the environmental cost, loss of peat, whatever. These are things that can easily be lost essentially and not considered. The amount of aggregate that's hauled, you've got tipper trucks continually hauling material.
So all these industrial terminals, they've got these big concrete bases where there's thousands of tons of concrete going in?
Yeah, it will be a lot of cubic meters.
They're going to stay there, aren't they, even when the turbines are decommissioned?
Yeah, I think the best case scenario is if a site was decommissioned, then they remove the top part of concrete and then cover it over, so the majority of the concrete remains in the ground.
Below the
It's
ground.
the current situation. And maybe in an industrial setting, in a city or something, you could say, okay, we can maybe repurpose that area and use it for this, but out in remote hillland like this, obviously that's not going to be the case. And even worse than that is if the site was to stay open, and when they repower that site, you can't just say, okay, that concrete is going to be used for the next turbine. It's generally not. What they'll do is they come along and they put, because the new turbines are generally even bigger and require different fixings, they can't reuse the bases that are there, so they will generally again have to pour even bigger foundations for the new turbines that come in. So essentially you've got the old turbine bases there, and then there's a good chance at the moment that you'll have new bases poured for the next lot of turbines that come
this
along.
word industrialisation is a very real word, isn't it? It's just pouring concrete everywhere. I think it's just pouring.
Again, concrete is one of those things people just don't realise. It's not just the pouring of the concrete, and once it's in there, you've forgotten that. You've had that environmental cost. The cost of environmental cost continues with concrete, because you've that loss of water retention that the peat had. In fact, concrete does the opposite. It repels water and doesn't store it, so it has a big impact. And then you've got the effects of possibly concrete leaching, which is the chemicals that are in the concrete, and where will that end up? So it's not just that, it's the environmental consequences that go on for years.
Yeah.
Maintenance and ongoing maintenance and repairs is a bigger issue for wind turbines now, because I think they're changing where they're produced. So China is obviously becoming a bigger producer,
Okay.
and possibly the components aren't quite up to the same standard as they used to be.
Right?
So I think a lot of them suffer from bearing failures, and bearing failures obviously mean that you're losing all that oil out of the gearboxes, and then they've got to get cranes in to take the blades off the turbines to fix the bearings.
Hands Off Our Hills is still very much, how should we say, being proactive and being aware of all the issues affecting the Newton Stewart developments in a very fair and a reasonable way. Yeah, very patient. Yeah. Is that still very much the case? I mean.
Yeah, and the other thing is obviously we've got 4 developments all at once, which puts a big strain on everybody that's involved as well. So dealing with one development is a big undertaking, but dealing with 4 all very close together, all at the same time, is a huge thing, not just for Hands Off Our Hills, but for the members of the public, and obviously everybody gets weary of meetings and
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So do you still have trust in human nature? I mean,
yeah. I think from the public perspective, I think I'm happy that the majority of the people have come out to meetings, have done what they can, and are aware of what's going on, and being, I think we're lucky in that respect, that we've got good people who are willing to get involved and be proactive. You could always do with more, but it's a long process, and therefore even the most, what would you say, a member of the public who's really against something over the term of years, then it's hard to maintain that constant interaction, and to attending meetings, and to keeping up to date with what's going on, and that side of it is difficult from everybody's perspective. And like I say, you do have to be proactive and go. You have to go to the council website, keep an eye on what planning meetings are coming up. You can't rely on anybody. So the best way is to go to the council website, check the agenda for the meetings and see what's coming up in planning rather than relying on information from anybody else. That way you can check yourself. And these are the kind of checks that Hands Over Hills will be doing regularly, and it becomes an extensive task to keep up to date with all that. Yeah, it's important to go to the Facebook page, ideally once a week, and stay involved, and the websites, and like I say, you can go to the development company's website, keep in touch with your MSPs and just generally keep tabs on what's going on, because it's very easy to become, I wouldn't say complacent, but just to allow it to slip, and you might miss something that's really important. The comments I've had from guests that come up is that they come here from the peace and quiet, the nature, and the scenery, and all the attractions that are offered. And what's happening at the moment is the attractions are becoming less. They're all closing because they're struggling. So the most recent one is the Gem Rock Museum is closing, which is a big attraction at Cree Town. And things like that. So it's becoming harder and harder, whereas it should be going the other way. We should be having more attractions and making this a destination area. But as I've said, personally I've found from the holiday let and the tourism side, it's becoming harder and harder each year, and wind farms are one factor in that, but there is a lot of other factors, including the regulations. The wind farm visually itself, it will have an impact, but the bigger impact might be on the dark skies and those tourist attractions, as we may lose dark sky status.
Okay, so what's going to happen? I mean, the dark sky does rely on no lights, for example. Is that right? And the industrial turbines are having these flashing lights. They've got all sorts of compromising issues.
Continuous lights, but they look to flash because of the rotation of the blades.
Okay, yeah.
I would have serious concern with the impact on Newton Stewart High Street and things like that, because if residential lets carried on declining as they are at the moment, that's less visitors coming in. Those visitors are then not visiting attractions and not going to the high street and not going out for meals, and so it's a what do you call it, a domino effect.
Absolutely,
of decline.
Okay.
From my point of view, I find it really annoying, because I'm very pro renewable. I think it is a good thing.
Right, no, that's good.
But it's the way that wind farms have been rolled out and mismanaged, and the way there is no structure to the development and no consideration. To me, there should be areas that are acceptable for wind turbines, and then the power should be consumed and used locally, whereas we're generating power in Galloway, which is going to Ireland, south of England, and probably even over to Europe. And that does not make any financial, or it means that we're paying more for our energy, considerably more, because it's travelling a lot of distance, and the waste involved. A lot of power that's produced by this is just never used. It just is wasted.
Okay, well, I've got to say thank you so very, very much for all this time that you've spent. I mean, you've taken this time out of a very busy day, I'm sure, and thank you so much, Neil. I mean, I think you're an absolute example of somebody who's very balanced view and has been very fair. But we thank you very much for spending this time and keeping us informed of behind the scenes activity with the industrial turbine sort of what's going on in the area. And thank you very much again. Thank you for all that.
Okay, Paul. Thanks. Good to see you.